to, or welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Saskia and I'm currently a second year psychology student at the University of Southampton. So, you can probably tell by the title I'm going to do a video on basically BTECs versus A-levels because there's a lot of discourse, discussion, argument on this topic by people who I would say are maybe not qualified to talk about it. So I did both BTECs and A-levels, well, IB, which is rough, it's the A-level equivalent international, so like, it's an A-level, I'm gonna say. And I thought I would basically just talk about the differences between them, my experience of both of them, and which one has probably been more useful for my degree. So which one is probably worth doing. Before we begin, just my opinion. Anytime I publicly speak about BTECs, I didn't enjoy my BTEC, shock horror, wasn't for me. Anytime I mention that, I get slated, or if I say I found my BTEC easy, I get slated. First of all, my opinion, my experience, if you disagree, that's fine. We all have different academic levels, different success levels, like it won't be the same for everyone essentially. So please don't slate me, this is my opinion. I feel like I'm qualified to give this opinion because I have done both A-levels and BTECs. So I thought I'd just preface this with that. And also the BTEC I did was health and social care. I did an extended diploma, which is the UCAS point equivalent of 3 A-levels. And I'm going to say it's the UCAS point equivalent rather than the equivalent because I don't think it is the equivalent in terms of work. Drama. And then I did biology and psychology as an A-level. So I technically did 5 A-levels, I also then did an EPQ equivalent, but that's not relevant to this video. So I've got a document, well, I've got my YouTube notebook. Anytime you see the pink notebook, this is the YouTube notebook. And I've literally just split my paper and gone for it. So I thought first thing I talk about is kind of what it is. So a BTEC is a typically vocational course. It tends to be done in almost a less niche area or a more niche area. So like rather than doing, you can basically do like law, like specifically you're doing law, you're going to do law at uni. You can do like health and social care, you're going to do health and social care at uni. You can do like business, you can only get into business. Like it's very, you do this BTEC, you will do the same thing or roughly the same thing at uni. A-levels are then, you pick English, you pick maths, you kind of study 3 subjects, sometimes 4, and you do more than one subject essentially. So you will do those in less depth than in a BTEC. Less depth in quote marks because So BTECs, normally you get into a BTEC with a grade C at GCSE. So I think that's a 4 now, or a 3, I don't know. A-levels, you then normally need a 6 or a B to get into the subject. So because I did the IB, you needed a 6 to get into the standard level, which is the equivalent of AS, and a 7 to get into the higher level, which is the equivalent of A-level. So you basically needed a 7 in my school. I know it's roughly a 6, so those are the kind of basic comparison differences. Also, quick kind of keyword thing, BTECs, you have an extended diploma, which is the UCAS point equivalent of 3 A-levels, you have a diploma, which is the equivalent of 2 A-levels in UCAS points, and then you have a certificate, which is the equivalent of 1 in UCAS points. A-levels is just an A-level. Grading is also different. So in a BTEC you can get a pass, merit, distinction, and then your overall course grade, you can also then get a distinction starred, but you couldn't get a distinction star in a coursework. A-level you have the typical A star, A, B, C, D, E, F, U. Can you even get an F? Don't know, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what it is. So my first point is kind of almost what it is again. Like in a BTEC, quite a lot of the courses are only coursework, as in you do coursework throughout the year. You're not going to do all of your work in May. In mine, you did 11 coursework units, 10 coursework units, and 4 exams. Something along those lines. I know a lot of people who are in my academic year but at different schools just did the coursework. So you sometimes do just coursework, you sometimes do exams. In A-levels, you're not really coursework based in your assessment. Like sometimes, I know in the IB, we got 20% of our grade from coursework. Some things like art will have coursework, English might have coursework, but it's, you know, most of your grading will come from your end of year exams in May, June time. So you're working towards something. I would say, like with a btec, you're working at kind of equal effort the whole year round. Like you might be working at 60-70% effort the whole year because you're constantly putting out courseworks. It's not like you can work at 20% in, you know, September to February, and then when you're like, oh god, I've got exams, I'll push through to 70%. Whereas in A-level, you can work at 20% effort until exams when you put in, you know, you do your 100%. So effort levels is kind of different in terms of where your effort lies. So, you know, in your btec though, if you have exams, you will be doing, you know, 60-70% effort throughout, and then more effort when it comes to your exams. In btecs as well, you have exams in January and May. In A-levels, you have exams in June, May, roughly that time. So in a btec, you're continually assessed. It's not you put all of your effort into one thing. It's a constantly happening assessment. You can't slack off for one of your courseworks because it is part of your final grade. Like everything you do makes up your final grade. In an A-level, yes, your topic tests will basically tell your teacher what predicted grade to give you, but it's not necessarily going to affect your final grade, like the grade that you get in the exams. If you got U's in all of your marks, you can still get an A star in the final exam. Whereas in your courseworks in a btec, if you get a pass in one of your courseworks, you've then limited your final overall grade. Then in a btec, you don't really have to revise. So for exams, yes, you kind of revise, but not really. But you don't really have to do any revision. You just kind of, you know, you go home, you start your coursework assignment, you finish your coursework assignment, done. You don't revise for the coursework assignment because it's like an EPQ. You don't revise for an EPQ, you just do the EPQ. And then for an A-level, you will revise, or you should revise, because you need to kind of revise all of the content. So that's another kind of difference. With A-level, you're revising everything you've ever been taught for your final exam. With a btec, you're revising everything you've been taught on one unit. So we did in a unit from September to December. The exam in January is then just on the September to December content. It's not going back to what you did in year 12, it's not going back to anything else. You have less that you need to know per exam. And I would say that makes exams easier. I would say overall exams are easier in a btec. Considering I've sat both, not technically my A-level exams because COVID, but because I have sat both, I would say an A-level exam is objectively harder. Like, in terms of grade boundaries, that's when you can tell something is hard. In my btec, you could get 50 out of 80, and that was a distinction, that was an A grade. In A-level, you had to get 75 out of 80 for your A grade, or your A star grade. Like, it was much harder to get that A in terms of grade boundaries, but also in terms of the content that you need to know. Like, I feel like anyone could open a btec paper and have a rough guess at a few things and get some marks. I couldn't open an English paper from A-level and get marks because I don't know anything. Some things in some btecs are common knowledge. So like if you did an applied science btec, you have to have done science at GCSE anyway. I could probably open an applied science btec paper and have a rough guess at some things and get a few marks. Like, it's more common knowledge. Obviously not everything. Like business, if you've not done business before, you can't answer it. I couldn't answer a business paper. But I would say, especially with the health and social care I did, some of it is just common knowledge. Some of it was just like, it was just like, don't bully your patients. Some things like that. And like one of the units was biology. It was GCSE level biology, essentially. I would say anyone could answer that paper and probably get, honestly, a distinction because you only need 50 marks. Like, the exams are objectively easier. The grade is objectively easier to get a higher grade, which is then why I think, you know, the A-star equivalent, or like getting DDD, which is AAA equivalent, is not the same as getting AAA in A-levels. Getting AAA in A-levels is significantly harder than getting DDD in uni. btecs. So like it's, A-levels are harder, essentially. That's just what I'm going to say. A-levels are more academic style. The questions that you are asked are closer to what you do at GCSE, when it's not things that you would know. Like why, like you get asked like, why does a plant need magnesium? That's not something that you kind of know, that's not a real world application thing. In a BTEC, it's almost more real world application. Some things like applied science, probably not, because it's science, but like in health and social care, it was more real world things. Like one of the topics that we did, we had to read articles that were from Currently Now, analyse articles, do kind of psychology stuff on articles, and that was obviously based on real life, what was happening now. So you have a kind of slight difference in the content, the level of content, the application of the content, that kind of thing. I will then talk about kind of getting into university, and that links to the kind of grading. Like if you apply to university with a BTEC, you would get an offer of DDD. If you had A-levels and applying for the same course, you would get an offer of AAA. Not equivalent. Equivalent in UCAS points, not equivalent at all. Getting an A in, or an A-star in a subject in A-level that I did, much harder than getting 3 A-stars in health and social care. Like, the effort levels are very, very different. So like BTECs make it easier to get into uni in some courses. A BTEC will limit the choices you have for university. Regardless of what subject you've done, some universities refuse to accept BTECs. They won't take you, or they'll only take you if the BTEC is half of what you've done. So if you've done like a diploma, but you've then also done maths as an A-level, they're more likely to consider you than if you've done a extended diploma and no A-levels. Because the assessment style is different, they want to know that you can kind of cope with the demands of uni, which I would say closer to maybe A-level style in terms of academic difficulty, closer to A-level style. Like, yeah. And the stuff that I've done at uni is closer to A-level content as well, significantly. Like I know I did health and social care and I'm now doing psychology, but even looking at some of the psychology modules that you can do in a BTEC or like a psychology BTEC, the content is closer to A-level. So the A-level kind of is more helpful content-wise. The BTEC makes it easier to get into uni. Like BTEC offers are almost unconditional because you can pretty much calculate your grade that you're going to get at the end of the year before you've finished. Like if you know that you're getting distinctions on all your courseworks, you're not going to suddenly not get a distinction. So you can guess, right, if I get distinctions in all my coursework, I'll end up with. You can predict your final grade very easily. With an A-level, you can't predict it. Like you can know I've been working in A all year, my exams have all been an A, but you could get into that exam and get a D. You could get into that exam and get an A-star. Like a BTEC offer for university is much easier to meet than an A-level one. In A-levels you tend to get kind of reduced offers because of like an EPQ or like widening participation, those kinds of things. In a BTEC, not really going to happen. Like even if you were from a lower income area, your BTEC offer will probably stay as what the original offer is. So if it was DDD, it will stay as DDD. Whereas if it was AAA, it might get reduced to AAB or ABB because of an EPQ and widening participation. So your BTEC offer doesn't really change. Your BTEC offer is also much more attainable. I would say you have much more security applying to university when you've done a BTEC because you know that you've already secured that grade. Like I would say by the end of year 12, you can roughly predict what your final grade will be. Whereas in A-level, you can predict it, but it can change a lot more. Like you could predict that you're going to get all Bs and you could get into the exams and fail them all. You could do in a BTEC, you can predict that you're going to get, D-star, DD, and then fail one exam and then only get DDD. Like it's fine. You do have to in BTEC actually pass your 4 core exams, but again, I think to pass the exams it was honestly like 19 marks. Like 1/4 of the paper you need to pass to get through, and some btec papers have questions that are 1 mark. They are quite easy to do. So yeah, your university offer is much more attainable with a btec. It's much more uncertain with an A-level. With a combination of the two, I would say you have more security because you can kind of guarantee that you've already got your DD in your diploma, and then if you mess up your exam, you already know that you've got some security in your grading. Like you've already got some of that grade, you've already secured kind of part of your entrance to university. So that is kind of exams, grading. What else do I have to talk about? University essays, I would say, are closer. Actually, I'd say it really depends. A btec essay that you do, or a btec coursework that you do, because you don't really do essays, is quite low in standards. Your teacher just has to mark it based on whether you've met criteria. It's not marked on whether you can spell, or whether you can actually communicate something efficiently. Like some people in my class, or some people doing btecs, will start a sentence with a word that cannot start a sentence. And they'll still pass the module, they'll still get an A. Like, you can say I in a btec essay, which is disgusting. I would never do this, hate it, not for me. In a university essay, you're not saying I. I mean, in any essay, don't say I, please. Like, that is the worst thing to do. But like in a btec essay, you can say I, you can make spelling mistakes, you can pretty much be the worst essay writer ever and still pass the module because the content is there. In A-levels, your essay needs to be coherent at least. Like if you say I, yeah, fair enough. If your content is there and your essay flows, you'll still do okay, but like you get marked more on like your communication. So I know in psychology you get marked on communication, terminology, those kinds of things. In a btec, it's literally a ticky box list of, right, oh yeah, they've met B1, they've met B2, they've met B3. It's not, have they communicated it well? But you can make your btec essays good-ish. Like I have a very academic writing style, I've always had a very academic writing style. So even my btec coursework content on things that aren't very academic or rigorous were still very academic sounding. I still used big words, I still use subsequently, alas, however, those kind of rubbish fancy words, but you could still pass the course having no essay writing abilities. Whereas in A-level, if you have any essays in your course, you can't pass the course without doing an essay well. So I would say the essays at university are kind of a mix of A-level and btec. You need to have the communication skills of an A-level essay, but you almost follow I think my btec helped with the university things. You do referencing, you do citations, like that is useful because you do that at university. So I already knew how to reference and cite and all of those kind of things. And also in terms of content, almost the structure of a btec course, like there isn't really a set structure, but they almost teach you that you do kind of, my btec essays definitely helped me do university essays. My A-level essays did not. And like an A-level psychology essay is not really going to help you because the structure is very different. In a university essay, you don't kind of do like point, evidence, explain. Like you kind of do, but you also really don't. I can't really explain how to write a university essay, but I have done a video on showing you mine because I can't really verbally explain how to write an essay because it's very confusing. So yeah, btec essay standards much lower, A-level essay standards higher, combination of both for university. Length, closer to btec ones, content closer to A-level ones, structure, not really any of them, marking closer to A-levels, as in it's harsher, it's also based on how well you communicate something. Skills, closer to btec, because you have referencing, you have kind of using correct sources, weighing up your evidence, those kinds of things. I would say then in terms of like teaching style, in a btec, it's more independent. You kind of get told, you know, we're doing unit 1 development. You kind of, if you're doing an exam unit, you will get taught that exam unit. You sometimes don't really get taught anything. You get told like, oh, this is it, go read the textbook and have a look at that. In an A-level, you get taught everything. Like we had one topic that was completely independent study in our A level, which was a bit weird. Like, they did just kind of say over some and they were like, oh, go do topic 4. I was like, we're not going to get taught it. We did not get taught it. We just learn it ourselves, which is kind of university essentially. And in a btec, especially with coursework, you do just get told, like, do B1 tonight, do B2 tonight, do B3 tonight. You just do it yourself. You get told what you're doing, and you then do all of the independent study yourself. You find resources yourself, you find everything yourself, which is much closer to university, because you get told, oh, your essay will be on this question. You can then use some of the resources from a lesson, roughly similar to A level, and then the rest of it is on you. You have to find the right content, you have to do the revision in your own time. With an A level, you get told the content essentially. So like even in psychology, when you're having to do evaluations, it's not evaluating from your own point of view, your own opinion, it's, right, what did I get taught in class to evaluate? So it's much more kind of, I would say university is much more like a btec teaching style. Not necessarily a btec teaching content or level of effort or anything like that, but it's much more independently taught. So that is useful. People who do btecs are kind of much better at the independent teaching thing. Like, I know people who have done A-levels that have just not known what to do. Like some people in my year have kind of got to uni and been like, why am I not having my hand held? Like, and I know people will always see the btec as like you're having your hand held, walk through the course. In my opinion though, in an A-level, your hand is being held, you're being cradled. In a btec, you maybe have a pinky link and they're like, kind of following this topic, kind of come along. In uni, they're just like, maybe touch my finger. Like, you're kind of like that and you're like, we're doing memory, do it on your own. So it's kind of closer to btec teaching style. In my opinion, A-levels are better, even though there are cons. So an A-level is harder. It's harder to meet your university offers. You could get loads of offers, but you might miss all of them because you can't predict how you're going to do. You also have your hand held a bit more, but that is a skill you can develop at university if you just know to develop it. Like, once you get to university, no one's going to hold your hand. Your lecturers won't know you exist. You just have to do things on your own. But the content is more relevant for university, I have found. Like, I'm sure if I'd done business at btec and then done business at uni, the content would be more relevant because I've studied more of business than people who have done a business A-level. But I would say A-levels are better in terms of grading. It's much closer to university. Like, if you, like an A at A-level doesn't mean that you're going to do well at uni, but it is kind of a better predictor than if you got a D or a distinction or an A in btec. You could then fail uni, you could then get 50 because your essay style is completely different. It's much easier to attain a distinction than to attain an A. Like, the effort to attain an A will be similar to the effort that you then need to attain a 2-1. So your effort levels are already prepared. You're kind of set up for the disappointment, honestly. Like, I know a lot of people that come into A-level from A stars at GCSE and get an E. You're kind of set up for that disappointment of when you come to uni, if you then get like a 50 and you're like, oh, I thought I was really, really intelligent and I was going to get all firsts. I would say they're better for university. They're more useful because they're more respected. They're also, you're more likely to get into university with an A-level. Like, there are some subjects that they'll need, there are some subjects that they'll reject, but like, you have more options with an A-level because you have a combination. You can have a science, you can have a humanity, and you can also have like drama. You can have a combination of things, which mean that you could apply for drama at university if you've done drama, maths and physics. You could apply for physics at university and your drama is just there as a helping hand. Like, you have more options, you have a lot more options open. It's harder to get into those options in terms of, you know, final exams and things, but you have a lot more options. Then in terms of the btec, you have less options, you narrow yourself down. You know, if you pick to do law in a btec, chances are you're doing law at uni. But there are still some unis that won't take you because they won't accept a btec. So your options are kind of closed down in terms that you can only do law and then you can only get into some universities. So you know, you have to know what you want to do kind of when you do a btec, unless you do a broad thing. Like, health and social care can get you into actually like law, social work, psychology. You can get into some science courses, like you can get into a lot of random stuff. In terms of kind of university, in university you have like midterms, courseworks, and then exams, which is closer to kind of the btec style of you're constantly working. Like, I mean, I'm not, but some courses have constant work where you have, you know, constant assessment, constant exams, which is closer to a btec style. So a lot of A-level students might find it kind of overwhelming to suddenly have a midterm that is actually important. Like, you know, you're not used to having an exam in October, November that is actually going to count towards your final grade. But in a btec, you are. You already know that that's going to happen. You've done that before. You're prepared for that. But it is harder to get into university. It is less respected, I guess. You also don't have revision skills a lot of the time. I know a lot of people who did pure coursework-based btecs don't have the revision skills that they need at university because they've never had to revise. So obviously you then have to develop those revision skills. Like, there are pros and cons to each thing. In an A-level, you're going to have to develop the skills to write kind of a long coursework thing with referencing. You're going to have to develop the skills to do independent learning. In a btec, you're going to have to develop the skills to understand the more academic content and also to understand kind of how to revise, how to exam. So I think that's everything. I did have my list, but I kind of didn't follow it in order, which didn't help. So I don't know if I've actually discussed everything I wanted to. There are pros and cons to each. Pick which one works for you. I'm not gonna lie, I'd say a combination of btec and A-level might be quite good. Doing a certificate in one subject and then A-levels in two things that you know you can do well in and you enjoy, or doing a diploma and then also, you know, maths, physics, English, drama, another subject. It's good to have a combination of the two. It's good to know what your options are. Like, do your research, pick which one's going to work best for you, look at other people's experiences, look at, if you already know what you want to do at university and you know you could get in with a btec, do a btec, it's easier. Objectively, work smart, not hard. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you disagree with anything I said, please don't bully me. If you like to subscribe, and I'll see you whenever I next film a video, which might be in 10 minutes.